I am Jan Žižka of Trochnov, commander of armies, scourge of kings, and servant of a cause greater than thrones. Those centuries have passed since I trod the blood-soaked fields of Bohemia. My name still rides the wind of rebellion and justice. Born around 1360 in the rough lands of South Bohemia, I was not destined by noble lineage or scholarly tutelage, but by fire, conviction, and the brutal lessons of war. I was a child of a land torn between empire and reform, between the chains of Rome and the voice of conscience. Little is certain of my early life, except that I bore arms from a young age. Some say I fought at Grunwald in 1410, when the Teutonic Knights were broken by the Polish-Lithuanian host. I learned the art of killing not in courts, but on killing fields, under banners that shifted as quickly as loyalties. By the time I returned to Bohemia, my right I had been lost. I was no stranger to pain, nor to treachery. Yet the greatest betrayal I would witness was still to come. The execution of Jan Hus in 1415, burned alive at the Council of Constance for preaching a gospel unchained from the corruption of the Roman Church. That fire did not consume Hus. It ignited a nation. The Czech lands rose in fury. I cast off all allegiance to kings and cardinals. In the summer of 1419, after the first defenestration of Prague, the Hussite wars began. It was not merely a war of religion. It was a revolution of justice, of people, of a new vision for a godly society. I emerged not as a politician, but as a general, a tactician with no equal, and a will as unshakable as the mountains. I led the radical Taborites, named for the fortified town of Tabor, our city on a hill, where the faithful lived communally and preached equality under God. My enemies called us heretics, rebels, fanatics. We called ourselves brothers. I believed that war was a holy instrument when wielded with justice. Though blind in one eye, and later in both, I redefined the battlefield. I transformed wagons into war machines, creating the Wagenburg, a mobile fortress of chained carts, cannons, arquebusiers, and halberdiers. This was no feudal army of knights and banners. It was a disciplined militia of commoners, trained and drilled under my ruthless hand. These men did not serve a lord. They served an idea. At Sudemer, 1420, outnumbered and outmatched, I used the narrow terrain between fish ponds to blunt the attack of Catholic cavalry. At Witkov Hill, overlooking Prague, I and a few hundred men repelled the mighty forces of King Sigismund and the Papal Crusade. There, the commoners of Bohemia stood against the mailed fist of the empire and broke it. Witkov was no mere skirmish. It was a miracle born of gunpowder, strategy, and iron hearts. Sigismund would never take Prague. I waged not war for conquest, but for liberation. My armies defeated every crusade sent against us. At Kutna, Nemeki Brod, and Malesov, where I used wagon-mounted artillery to shatter entire enemy columns. My tactical innovations bewildered the knightly class. Their chivalry died in the mud before my wagons. Yet the enemy was not only external. The Hussite cause fractured between moderates and radicals. The Utraquists, who sought compromise with the Catholic Church, branded us dangerous. I crushed opposition when it threatened the movement's soul. In 1423, I defeated the Utraquists at Horus, routing them with precision and fury. Blind, I led armies across rivers and through mountains. My ears, my memory, my intuition replaced my sight. When I spoke, soldiers listened. When I commanded, they obeyed without hesitation. I ruled through fear, respect, and the certainty of purpose. My discipline was legendary. Theft, desertion, or rape meant death. We were warriors of righteousness, not brigands. In 1424, I launched my final campaign into Moravia, seeking to expand the revolution and suppress nobles loyal to Sigismund. On that march, near Pribislav, illness overtook me. I died, not on a throne, but on campaign, as I had lived. My soldiers wept, but they did not break. They called themselves Sirachi, the orphans, and carry my methods forward. They would win many battles yet, terrifying Europe from Silesia to Bavaria. My enemies feared me. King Sigismund called me that blind devil. Yet even his generals study my tactics. Centuries later, Prussian officers and Napoleonic marshals would examine my war wagons, my ambushes, my use of combined arms. I was a pioneer of mobile artillery, of peasant warfare, of democratic military order. My faith was my banner. I believed that the lowliest man, with God and courage, could face down an empire. And so I did. I fought not to conquer, but to free. I am Jan Žižka, strategist, zealot, and scourge of tyranny. When I died, it is said I wish that my skin be flayed and made into a drum, so that even after death, I might lead my soldiers in a battle. That is legend, but my legacy drums louder still. My statue watches over Prague, not in marble luxury, but with sword raised and one blind, I fixed eternally on the horizon. I am proof that no darkness can dim a soul ablaze with purpose.